What's next doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen by chance. What's next happens when experience meets expertise, when data meets dollars, and when steel meets earth. What's next happens when the promising work of Pioneer state-of-the-art research centers meets the unsparing challenges of more than 17,000 on-farm trials. Our ultimate goal is to bring the next seed breakthrough to your fields, because Pioneer isn't just our name, it's our mission. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Thursday edition of the show. Thanks so much for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. Also, a big shout out to everybody out there listening on the RealAg Radio podcast. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, enemies, peers, whoever you want, tell them about RealAg Radio. Okay, it's Thursday, which means it's Farmer Rapid Fire. Looking forward to this. We've got a full slate here today. Usually we've got 4 to 5 people. We've got 6 today. We're loaded. We're going to hear from a kind of an abnormal amount of people, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. Today's show is brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. For more than 90 years, Pioneer has developed and tested products to meet your local challenges. With new Optimum Glide canola, Enlist E3 soybeans, to performing corn products and industry-leading traits and technologies to maximize your yield potential, Pioneer's on-the-ground teams can help you get the right products for your fields. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more. Of course, mention Optimum Glide there. Optimum Glide is also the sole sponsor of our coverage of Agritechnica. That's coming up in November in Hanover, Germany. There's myself and 3 other members of the Real Agriculture team that are headed over to Germany to cover the world's largest farm show. And it hasn't happened since 2019. And I am super pumped about being able to do that. And Corteva has been a sponsor of our coverage of that show since we started doing it going back to 2015. Even before Corteva, Dow AgroSciences was a sponsor, so one of the legacy companies. So I really appreciate them being on board with our coverage of that fantastic show. Okay, let's get to today's show here, though, first. Today, we've got John-Wiebe's Dykstra from New Brunswick. Brett Israel's in Ontario. Greg Stopps is in Ontario. He is with Pioneer Seeds Canada. We got Jocelyn Velestuk, who is in Saskatchewan. Kent Erickson is in Alberta. And Derwyn Hammond, who also works for Pioneer, he is in Manitoba. So like I said, a full slate of people today here on the program. If you have any feedback on today's show, you can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com, or you can call that RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. And of course, you can find us across all the different social media channels. I think we got to a point where there's so many social media channels, we don't even need to mention them all. We're just Real Agriculture on all of them. How about that? And okay, let's take a break. Let's get to it. We got so many people to talk to. We have no more time to waste. Let's get to it. Today's show is brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
At Brett Young, we focus on what's real. It's how we became Canada's largest independent seed company. That's why we're asking a real farmer, what do you think of BY6217TF, Brett Young's TrueFlex Canola
What's that?
BY6217TF, Brett Young's TrueFlex Canola Hybrid with Pod Defender shatter reduction technology and Defender-rated club root and blackleg resistance.
Good yield, yeah. Probably choose it again.
Thanks, Chris. Talk to your Brett Young retailer today to see for yourself. Brett Young, distinct by design.
Dedication. Watching the sunset over your crop is one of life's simple pleasures. The anticipation of it all. We know that feeling. Introducing our new Airflex NXT, our best honeybee header yet with the closest cut ever. Light, fast reacting, and infinitely adjustable. More yield, less time and work. Airflex NXT focuses on the future. What drives your next? Visit honeybee.ca or contact your nearest honeybee dealer.
Does your N stabilizer contain an active ingredient load high enough to be agronomically effective? If not, it could be costing you time and money. If you're putting down a nitrogen stabilizer, put your trust in Koch Agronomic Services. Solutions like Super U, Tribune, and Anvil. Each delivers high active ingredient concentrations that low-rate products just can't match. Compare how imitator products stack up to agronomically effective solutions at defendyourn.ca.
And we start off this week's Farmer Rapid Fire brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, and we're out in New Brunswick in Salisbury, and we're talking to John-Wiebe Dykstra. Hey, John, how's it going?
Lovely. How's John?
Pretty good, pretty good. Okay, so what's happening out there on the farm this week?
I'm currently hauling silage round bales, first cut silage round bales, as a matter of fact.
Okay, and are you happy with yields, or talk about some of the growing conditions you experienced this year?
Well, it's September and I'm hauling first cut, so that's really not good.
That's what I was wondering.
So we've had a pile of rain. I was just looking yesterday, June, July, and August for a city about an hour for me had hit our record rainfall for this year. 551 millimeters of rain was the previous record in 1981, which is about 23 inches. Then this year, there's up to 762 millimeters, which is 30 inches over the 3-month period.
You have had 30 inches of rain in 3 months.
We haven't here. We've had a little bit less, but it's been a wet summer.
Yeah, so you got to understand, John. I know you do, but I live in a county where I don't know if we've seen 30 inches in maybe the last 6 years combined.
I believe you wholeheartedly.
Oh,
it poses different problems too.
No kidding. Exactly. That's the other end of the pendulum, right? It's like neither is good. So how have you kind of managed through that?
Waiting patiently for the rain to stop.
Oh.
Trying to get 3 days of weather to make hay. It's been a miserable growing season. But yields are great. There's all kinds of yield. It's just the fields are so wet. It's hard to get across. Now, even having said that, corn went in the ground very good conditions, and then we had a bunch of seed rot because it rained so much. So
yeah.
There's some fields where the corn's about half as tall as it should be, and half the seed rotted. So
is your ground tiled?
We have some tile ground. Not all of it is as of yet, and that was actually really interesting to see with the corn this year. All the tile runs, the corn was almost twice as tall. You could actually see that the water getting away, the tiled corn actually did a lot better in between the corn tiles.
Yeah,
the drain tiles.
In a year like that, if you are sort of questioning yourself, like, does it pay to put this tile in? Then you get that much rain, and when you have that visual evidence,
Absolutely.
Right, it's sort of like, yep, that's an easy decision.
Well, I was afraid, like my brother was planting the corn, I was afraid he didn't put fertilizer in it on one of the hoppers, but then you could see it wasn't actually following the rows; it was going across the rows where the tile runs were. It was really interesting to see.
One of those nice, friendly brother spats about did the brother who was running the planter actually put the fertilizer down? I like that.
Exactly,
that's good.
Or let it go too far. Anyways, it was
happens on every farm. Happens on every farm.
That's family. Family's fun.
Absolutely. How are things in the dairy?
Overall, pretty good. The summer was really warm at the beginning and humidity, but once August hit, it kind of cooled off for some reason. It's kind of odd for here. And overall, it's been good, but because of that late harvesting of all of our cuts, the quality is not great for our grass silage and the corn silage. We would normally snap about 150 acres of the corn through our harvester. And it's not looking like we're going to have enough just based on the yield of the corn silage this year. So there's a good possibility I'll be buying corn this year, just the reality of how this year turned out.
And how does that quality of that grass impact some of the output?
Basically, it's lower protein because it's an older grass because we could not get on the field at the right time. So we will be buying more canola meal to try to supplement the protein that is lost by not having it in the forage.
Have you been using canola meal for a while?
Yeah, about 3 years now.
Okay. Happy with it?
So far, so good. Last year was pretty nice. We didn't have to buy as much. Our grass quality was a lot higher. And but this year, we're going to be buying a pile of it, I think. It's just the reality of how this year turned out.
Yeah, I got to ask you, as a dairy producer, and I know you follow this stuff close. So as a dairy producer, What's your thoughts on what happened this week with the trade resolution with New Zealand? Both, it feels very similar to the USMCA, where both Canada and the opposing country, in this case New Zealand, claiming victory. What's your consensus? What's your thought on it?
From the individual farm perspective, there's going to be basically no change at all. From the market itself, I think there's really not even that much change. My understanding is the processors are going to have a little more work to do in managing some of the stuff, but overall, it's more or less status quo, which is a benefit to Canada. So, yes, New Zealand was able to argue for a change, but in the grand scheme of things, it should not impact things a whole lot.
Yeah, it's always hard to decipher. But when both sides claim victory, it's a bit of a challenge for those of us outside of it to get a feel for it. Because I read two, different stories yesterday where it's very oh, Canada won. Oh, and then another story was New Zealand won. It's hey, what the heck's going on here?
Well, again, New Zealand got the change it wanted, but it's not enough of an impact to matter, I guess is the simplest way to say it. So I don't know what the main reasons other than trying to make us compliant. And then maybe that sets up for another thing in the future. I don't really know for sure, but
yep. So, hey, do you got a bunch of fall work in front of you?
Oh, I've got all the corn to deal with. I've got grain. Most of our grain fields did not yield at all because of the rain as well. So those are mostly going to get this under as well. And then I think we got one or two that might be able to get something off, and hopefully some more manure out if we can. But the ground has not been able to hold up in the tankers very well. So.
Well, you know what? I really appreciate you taking the time in a busy week to join us here today on the Farm Rapid Fire. Hey, all the best to you this fall, and we'll check in with you a little bit later on in the year, okay?
Sounds good. You as well.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, to Mapletown Township in Ontario, and we're talking to Brett Israel. Hey, Brett, how's it going?
Pretty good, Sean. Yourself?
Hey, pretty good. Okay, so what's happening on the farm this week?
Well, it's a busy week. It seems like when the calendar rolls over to September, you got to get things ready for fall seeding and fall harvest. We try to get our winter barley crop in as early as we can in September to maximize our yields for next year. So we just wrapped up seeding our winter barley crop for next year, and basically today just getting caught up on all the barn work.
What kind of yield did you get from your winter barley this year?
So 2023 was an exceptionally good year for a winter barley crop.
That's what I've heard. I've heard.
And I think a large part of that's got to be given credit to the outstanding agronomists we got in Ontario, in addition to better genetics to use from a breeding perspective. So historically, when we were using basically just common winter barley seed, we were kind of happy with that 100 to 110 bushel per acre range. But now with the newer genetics like Resina, like Calypso, this past year we were running between 150 to 180 on field averages. So yeah, and I mean we're still organic producers, so I know conventional guys that were consistently yielding in that 170, 180 range, no problem.
Like that puts some feet up.
Oh, no doubt, and excellent quality straw. And then of course, we're not in the warmest part of the province, but still have an opportunity for double crop soybeans if the year allows for it. This year, of course, was so wet that we couldn't get the beans in on time.
Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. How tall does it get? Like when I think about barley and height and some of the moisture that you get, I think about lodging. Talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. So, it's obviously all part of just the management of it. We're not using any plant growth regulators. And at the same time, we have less access to nitrogen sources. So, we're using liquid pig manure as primary fertility source. So you are going to see some lodging if you push the seed rate too high and you push the end a little too much. But in general, they're bred for decent standability. Heights would kind of be a little bit of that waist high or so. So nothing too extreme. And I think the big thing, of course, is just having the management there. If we are seeding as early as we are in September, we don't need to be pushing the seed rates as high as if we're waiting until middle to end of September.
Oh, cool. So talk about the pigs. How's the hog business?
Yeah. So, fortunately for us, it remains pretty good. Obviously in the direct marketing end of things, you get a chance to interact with your customers on a daily basis. So for those of you economists that say that we're not in a recession yet, I stand to differ. When you actually talk to the real people out there, it's a tough market for a lot of folks. People just looking to put food on the table for their families. There's definitely a lot of concern in terms of where this economy is going to be going. But, we're fortunate to be really in a relationship-based business. And when you work to produce the best you can for your customer base, we're very fortunate to have a good retained bunch of customers, and very grateful for that.
So what are they telling you? Like, because you're selling pork, and
yes.
No secret, pork is a lot cheaper than beef when we're thinking about purchasing it. So what are they telling you?
Yeah, so really, it's just a matter of the price. Everything's gone up so much. Their take home pay is going down. So not only are they seeing less purchasing power because of the inflation that we're seeing, but they're actually seeing more and more of their pay, not ending up in their pockets. Higher income taxes for a lot of folks, percentages going up, stuff like that. So the budgets are definitely getting tighter. Folks are having to pull back. And I think the benefit of that whole process is people really taking stock of thinking, what am I going to prioritize in my day-to-day life as a family? How are we going to budget? And so maybe it's less vacations. Maybe it's eating out a little bit less and cooking at home a bit more. Hopefully, through this whole process, there can be some good that comes out of it, because there's definitely a lot of background stress out there. And you can kind of feel it, like it's one of those things in conversations. You got to be there for each other, because that background stress is not good for anyone.
Brett, I'm going to Germany in November for Agritechnica. And one of the things I'm the most excited about is I love a good pork knuckle. Do you sell a lot of pork knuckle?
We do get requests for maybe some more of the odd cuts, as they'll say it. We definitely have a customer base that has some unique tastes. So on a case-by-case basis, the cool part of working with a great processor like Harrison Packers, who we work with, is that, if we put in a custom order for something, they can definitely make that happen. We don't stock it on an ongoing basis, Shaun, but if you're ever in our neck of the woods, I can make that happen.
Oh, Germany does it up right. I that's one of my favorites for sure. Hey, how are the cover crops going?
Yeah, so we've been fortunate to get the cover crops established for the most part. Middle of July to the end of July, start of August time frame. So those earlier cover crops following winter barley and earlier winter wheat seedings, or harvest, I should say, those seeding dates were on a good amount of time. The cover crops are up, looking great. Our multi-species mixes are getting to that stage that kind of by middle of September, we're going to run through with the rotary cutter and chop them down. Helps to manage some of the weeds, helps prevent the cover crop from getting too growthy. So very happy there. And, the red clover frost seeded into our winter wheat acres is looking great too. So all in all, they're taking advantage of the moisture that we've been having, through much of August. And I'm happy that the fields are looking pretty green out there.
I'm detecting, you feel like you're having a pretty good year?
Yeah, it's one of those things that wheat harvest, particular, it's a bit more trying just based on the amount of precipitation that was. So, you'd have a couple-day window to run like heck, and then you'd get rained out again. So in all, the yields have been very good. I'm quite fortunate that way. Just a matter of getting the field work done when Mother Nature allows for it. So I'm quite optimistic about the soybean crop that's out there. The corn crop looks great. We just need enough heat to get the crops to finish properly. And hopefully, if we went into a warmer, dry period, I don't think anyone in our neck of the woods would complain all that much.
Well, hey, Brett, thanks a lot for joining us here today on the Farmer Rapid Fire. Really, really appreciate it.
No problem, Shaun. Good talking to you, and enjoy those pork knuckles.
Going back to that discussion with John-Wiebe's Dykstra, 30 inches of rain in 3 months, crazy, nuts. Yeah, and it feels so different than where I am here in southern Alberta. But I think the reality is we can argue about, what's better, too wet or too dry. But the reality is that there's adversity that comes with both those scenarios. And being in the middle would be really, really nice, I'm sure, for a lot of you that are listening, that feel you are on the fringes of both those two extremes. We've got more coming up here on the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. Make sure you go to pioneer.com/Canada to find out more. When we come back, we're going to hear from Greg Stopps. He's with Pioneer Seeds Canada right after this.
Proven Seed is at home in your soil. With the widest seed portfolio in Western Canada, our seed is developed and tested on and for your local acres. Our hybrids and varieties are tested by hundreds of growers, so we know how our seed will perform in your local conditions. Better returns start with seed that belongs where it's planted, and this seed belongs here. Secure your seed today at your local Nutrien Ag Solutions or visit provenseed.ca to learn more.
What's next for your fields? At Pioneer, delivering industry-leading genetics drives everything we do. From the scientists in the lab to our local teams with boots on the ground, we are determined to get there first. Developing top-performing products, proven in more growing conditions than ever before. Pioneer. What's next happens here. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more.
Introducing the Arion 600 Series tractor by Claas, where versatility meets productivity head on, because you've got jobs to do. Mowing, tedding, raking, baling, loading, filling, tilling, cleaning, spreading, hauling, feeding. This is multi-purpose reimagined to do the work for you. It's more than just power. The Arion 600 tractor gets it done.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio, here for the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. Speaking of Pioneer Seeds Canada, we're talking to Greg Stops. He's Pioneer Area Agronomist in St. Mary's, Ontario. Hey, Greg, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me back, Shaun. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, how's your week going?
It's been a pretty good week so far. We're getting a lot of heat here in southwestern Ontario this week, which is a welcome thing. It's been kind of a cool summer for us, so it's nice to see a bit of heat kind of coming back into the forecast. Although things are looking like they'll cool again here in September.
Yeah, it's nice to have some September days where the Rogers Centre can be open and the Blue Jays can play in front of that blue sky, but selfishly, we also need some heat for this corn to finish. We've heard all summer how great the corn looks, but I think the topic right now, and I'm sure you've been hearing a lot of it from some of your customers, is this question of, okay, we're late on this. It looks great. We're late, though. Will it finish? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, one, to address it, yeah, the corn does look pretty good. I mean, it's variable here and there, but there's a lot of good yield potential out there when you're looking at ears. But the number one concern from customers in the last 2 or 3 weeks has been, is it going to finish? And as guys have been looking at corn the last week or so, they're looking at it and saying, well, it's barely starting to dent. We think we're behind. Can we get there? Right. And I think a lot of that remains unseen at this point. It's going to be hugely weather dependent. It's going to be dependent on if we get some of that cold weather coming in and an early frost. And we all hope we don't, but we don't have a crystal ball to kind of tell that. Where I sit today, most of the area that I cover, which is largely Huron and Perth County Central, we're a week to 2 weeks behind in the corn crop by my estimate. We've had decent growing conditions all year, but they have been a little cooler. And then on top of that, we're feeling the effects of some of those cloudier and sometimes smokier days in the middle of the summer, that have really reduced the solar radiation that we've seen this year, which has reduced the efficiency of those plants, right? So they've got a lot of catch up to do here in September, and we just need the weather to cooperate to let us do that catch up.
Yeah, so I guess best case scenario, wide open fall, we get the heat. It's one of those beautiful September, October periods of time, because we've had this before where we go into outdoor farm show and everybody's talking about will the corn finish, right? And that's what we can expect next week. That'll be the big discussion in Woodstock all week as people are coming in and out of your booth and walking down some of the aisles. And I remember I can't remember what year it was, but I remember that was the big discussion. Then it was beautiful. And it was like, okay, we didn't need to be worried at all. But there also is that scenario where we don't get that kind of weather that we're hoping for, which, fingers crossed, toes crossed, that would be just brutal given how good the crop looks.
Yes, absolutely. Right. It would be really disappointing. And you've laid it out really well where, best case scenario, we have a nice open fall, things manage to finish, we get enough heat to get us to black layer, and without kind of too much stress on the plants to cannibalize things from the stalks and take some of those resources out of the plant to finish the ear. But worst case scenario, I always jokingly say, and you brought up the Blue Jays earlier on, worst case scenario is 1992, right? Where we had the year of no sun and it was cold and the crop didn't finish. And there's a lot of farmers today of the younger generation who don't remember that. And I am actually one of them. I mostly focus on the Blue Jays at the age I was in 1992.
Me too.
But certainly it was the worst case scenario year, right? Where the crop just struggled all year and didn't finish. And it would be heartbreaking for us to be there this year if it didn't finish. But we're not there. This has not been a 1992 year. We're behind. This year, as we go into fall, looks a lot more like 2019, where we were behind not because of growing conditions through the summer, but because of planting conditions in the spring that got us so late into the ground. There was a lot of questions then about will it finish, and we ended up with that nice open fall that did let things finish. There were some higher moisture crops out there. We can't deny that. But things did manage to get there. Some cases we were forced to brown layer instead of black layer. But the crop, for the most part, was still in pretty good shape when we got it off. I think we're going to fall somewhere between best case scenario and worst case scenario this year. And then the hope, of course, is just, we're closer to best case scenario where everything is fairly open, the corn plant can still finish and dry down properly. And hopefully any risk of frost moves well out beyond kind of that black layer timing for us.
Yeah, yesterday on the show, Peter W.P. Johnson mentioned, I think he said September 1st, you want to have a hint of dent, is how he described it.
Yeah, and we're seeing that in some areas. Certainly the south of Ontario is seeing that a little bit, south of London. The more northern areas, you're starting to see a couple kernels on the bottom of the year starting to, but now we're a full week into September, right? So we need to be further along than just that hint at this point. And the heat we've received the last few days will help with that. But there's no denying we are a little bit behind. And, one thing that does really speak to is how important it is to choose hybrids of the correct relative maturity for your area, right? And to play it a little bit safer, or at least to manage your risk by having a portfolio of hybrids and different relative maturities, right? So you can balance that risk of stuff not finishing properly.
Great point.
There has been a real temptation over the last few years to continue chasing higher and higher yields with the yield potential that are in later maturing hybrids. And sometimes that absolutely pays off. We've seen the last few years with open falls and plenty of heat that has paid off big. But sometimes it's these backwards years that remind us, let's rein that in a little bit and pick a hybrid or some hybrids in our operation that are most appropriate for our growing area so that they're great.
Any evidence that as we came out of the smoke, because I get how the smoke would have an impact on that sunlight, right? As we came out of that period, was there a hangover effect where the plant took a while to kind of get going again, so to speak, or is that an instant change? Do you have any info there?
I don't, to be honest. And I think, your head's in the right space and there may very well have been an impact. It would be hard to tease that out though, because as we kind of came out of some of those smoky days, and they did kind of linger periodically through the summer, we came out of them a lot of the time and it was still kind of cooler than normal. So the temperature alone may very well have driven more of that lag and inefficiency in the crop. Especially kind of as we came through some of it in August, right? August seemed to be quite cool for us, or cooler than normal. There was more of that fall feel in the air in the middle of August than we would have liked to have had. And certainly a lot more rain. So it wasn't just the smoke, but the cloud then that actually did kind of take some of that efficiency out.
Well, Greg, we're out of time. We didn't even get to soybeans. The soybeans are turning. I guess that's what we could say. So, but
the soybeans are turning nicely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And we're fingers crossed there too on some good yields on those beans. Hey, Greg, thanks so much for joining us here today. Really, really appreciate it. And we'll chat with you a little bit later on in the year. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Shaun. Appreciate you having me on.
And of course, go Jays, go! We got to win some games here. We can't go. We can't lose to the Oakland A's like we did yesterday. That's tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be right back on Real Ag Radio, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, right after this.
Where do you buy your corn and soybean seed from? If you're a Maizex Seeds customer, the answer is other Canadian farmers. With one of the largest pre-commercial testing programs in Canada aimed at meeting local needs, Maizex offers benchmark performance in corn hybrids and soybean varieties from a company owned by Canadian farmers. Ask your Maizex dealer about the best products field by field for your farm, or visit maizex.com today.
The Advancing Women Conference, the National Leadership Conference for Women in Ag, is celebrating 10 years of bringing women in ag together. Whether you're a producer, student, entrepreneur, representative of grower association, or corporate agribusiness, invest in yourself in Niagara Falls on November 19th, 20th, and 21st. Visit advancingwomenconference.ca for more information and to register.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, to Broadview, Saskatchewan. We're talking to Jocelyn Velestuk. Hey, Jocelyn, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty good this morning. It rained again, so we had a bit of a stall to harvest, but other than that, we're doing pretty good.
How do the crops look?
Crops, are surprisingly good. The wheat's coming off probably 20, 30 bushel more than maybe we thought it would be. So that's a good thing, and we're pleasantly surprised, and we've had no breakdowns so far, knock on wood. It's been going fast, except for the rain. So.
Now, what has the moisture been like through the season? Is this like moisture just really poorly timed, or have you had you're kind of in a drier area, correct?
Well, we're a little bit drier. I don't think we're as dry as further west of us, but I think we are around 4 to 6 inches this growing season, depending on where the land is. And, we definitely see the difference from going a couple miles where they maybe got an extra inch. We got another, 10, 20 bushels extra, which is nice to see, but similar management, right? And yeah, we didn't see rain probably from mid-June to early August. So it came a little bit late, but I think some of the crops like the canola helped it fill in, and the flax as well started flowering again. But I think it did help a little bit, but we're pleasantly surprised with what the wheat varieties are doing and how they withstood the drought and still produced, really great yield.
Yeah, it's a good thing we have some of these newer varieties, right? That's what we continue to hear, whether it's, some of the corn genetics or, crop like wheat, it's being able to withstand or push through as best they can some of these adverse conditions.
Exactly. And I guess I've been kind of more involved with the variety development side of things, with being involved with Sask wheat as a director for the past 4 years. And I've been able to see kind of the background of how this all happens and everything that goes into creating a wheat variety. And yeah, like the Brandon variety is still really strong, and that's been going strong for 9-10 years now. But we're also trying new varieties that are a bit more midge resistant, and there's still really great varieties to build on. And I know, like with the rains, we're always nervous about sprouting with the Brandon. It doesn't have as good sprouting resistance as some other varieties, but yeah, it's still producing really well in like lots of different kind of conditions.
Well, what was the driver to get you to step up to be on the Sask wheat board? Because I can't believe it's already been 4 years. But what was the initial push, and what's been your experience?
Well, the initial push was I was on another board that didn't have quite as much funding, and I saw some ways I can make a difference in order to use my voice. And I talked to a lot of different farmers as an agronomy consultant with my business, and a lot of similar concerns would come up. And I think for me, I feel like I can do something about it, or I'm trying to do something about it, and, talk to all these different farmers and have a voice to help make some of these decisions and see where the industry is going, and to get some answers too. I had so many questions. So I'm able to have some of those discussions with farmers and hear some more concerns, but also maybe I know more of the background of why things are going where they're going, and where we can go maybe to change it too.
Yeah.
So it's been a really amazing 4 years, and hopefully there's another 4-year term here in the future. And because I've learned so much to build on. So I think even with the science part of it and the research, there's so much great research coming up, and it's really exciting.
Now, I see on your Twitter profile that you have the hashtag Know Your Soil. Why is that on there? Talk about that.
Yeah, well, I still believe that, we're farming land, we're farming soil. And so many times we kind of, we think, what inputs we need and everything. But I still think that it's really important to measure our soil and to know what's going on. And if we see a problem, maybe that's arising over and over again, that we look into it and maybe take a shovel out there and talk to your agronomist and go out there and dig in your soil, see what's going on with your soil texture, your soil structure, see what your topsoil looks like, your mulch, and we can measure the nutrients and do a better job of predicting what nutrients we need from year to year. And I still think we can build on that as an industry.
Yeah. So do you have an example of a practice or things that you're doing on your farm to accomplish all that?
Yeah, so I guess I was a former agronomy consultant with Western Ag, and I still work with our farm with the soil side of it on that. I'm full-time farming now. But with that, we've taken our soils from, they were heavily tilled when we first started farming 9 years ago. And I've seen the soils with no-till, with good fertility year after year, with good varieties, good crop rotation, some diverse crop rotations added in there, here and there. I've seen our soil just go from not being really productive to we can, be more sustainable by producing a good crop more consistently year after year. So it's really cool to see that on our farm, and we need to do that in order to provide good land for our kids when they take over in the future. And so it's been really cool for me as a soil scientist, in only 9 years, we're seeing, better soil structure, and our crops are producing. And it takes a few years for the land to get back there, but it's very promising.
Hey, great stuff. Well, hey, Jocelyn, thanks so much for joining us here today on the Farmer Rapid Fire. All the best to you during harvest, and we'll check in with you a little bit later on in the year, okay?
Excellent. Thanks so much.
When we come back on RealAg Radio, we still have a stop on the Farmer Rapid Fire in Alberta and also Manitoba. You're listening to RealAg Radio, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
If I asked you, what's the most important tool on your farm? You'd probably think of tractors, trucks, and implements first. But it's actually something much bigger than that. Your soil is the most important equipment you own. The real question is, are you doing enough to keep it running at peak performance? Nutrien Smart Nutrition MAP plus MST is engineered with patented micronized sulfur technology to refuel your soil for maximum yields. Learn how to tune up your soil at smartnutritionmst.com.
Introducing the all-new Zerion 12 Series tractor by Kloss. Redesigned from the ground up to redefine the high-capacity four-wheel drive market. With 653 max horsepower, industry-leading hydraulic flow, a silky smooth CVT, a powerful TerraTrack undercarriage, and a quiet, comfortable cab with 20% more legroom. More than just power. The all-new Zerion by Kloss.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, to Irma, Alberta, and we're talking to Kent Erickson. Hey, Kent, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Shaun.
Okay, what's happening on the farm this week? What's going on?
Well, it's been a little bit of an interesting year. The fall, we had some wet weather. guys are going full tilt on the wheat. Our canola, I think there's quite a bit just kind of being swathed or sprayed or, kind of getting ready there. But I would say everybody's all over the map. We're hauling some grain in this wet weather, trying to move some before elevators fill up and just kind of getting going. I would say it's just in our pocket of the world with the dryness we had and then the late rains. We're a little bit later than some of the other areas around us.
Okay. For everybody that doesn't know their Alberta geography really well, you're on that is it Highway 14, just kind of east of Viking? Is that kind of like west? That's
exactly
west of Wainwright?
You go from, we're from Edmonton, kind of follow down southeast towards Wainwright. And then if you go straight east, you get into North Battleford and Saskatoon. We're kind of straight west of Saskatoon, I guess, a little bit north of that.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So now this moisture, is this a tap that's been turned on at a very terrible, did you have moisture prior, like in the ideal time period?
No. We had no moisture till late June.
Brutal.
And so, I wouldn't say any farmers that either struggle getting going in spring or seeded late, our late cereals and anything like after the 20th to 25th of May actually looks pretty good. But anything before that, which is the majority of our area nowadays, any wheat before like the 10th of May, especially in our area, we haven't got to ours yet. Quite close to home. We had some a little further away. You're looking at 25 to 35 bushels. The canola is so hard to tell. The canola, like I said, if you were a little bit later, the canola might have filled in, but there's a lot of second growth and you never know what comes there. So it's all over the map here. Green feed looks good because it was late. So feed for cows isn't bad. We had enough late moisture, tame grass and hay. We're starting to run out, but it didn't look as bad as, 02 for sure. But yeah, that's where we're sitting up here. I think yields are all over the map, but definitely well below average.
Yeah, it's tough. And I guess that I'm assuming you said variable. That's obviously there's going to be a big, wide pendulum of yields that people get depending on where they sit with their land, but also probably some staginess inside those individual fields, right?
Yeah, definitely. So especially in the canola, it's going to be really interesting what it does. The wheat, I would say for the most part, it was fairly even because if it was early enough, it basically just bolted. There wasn't a lot of second growth, no tillering, lots of issues in the weed management, wild oats, even the best farmers that use the best chemicals that spray at the exact right timing. There's lots because of such late rains. The wild oats waited till even late June to grow. And so there's a lot of wild oats coming in even on the fields that should be really clean.
Hard to fight against those late flushes.
Definitely.
And what you don't want to do is wait as long as possible to take care of your in-crop because you're hurting yourself on the yield side. So you're kind of in sort of no man's land, but it's really tough to deal with those late flushes when they do come, especially with something like wild oats. And they stick out and it's an eyesore. It just sucks.
Yeah, the in-crop decisions on spraying was really difficult because everybody was waiting for that rain just to get everything going. And we waited till the end of June. I don't think there's a lot of dirty stuff. The other issue is it's amazing what these crops, when we have normal growing conditions, how they can compete. You realize in a year like this, when you spray and the crop gets an advantage, it really does suppress the later weeds. Whereas this year, you really could see the canola and the wheat that just sat. Those late flush of weeds just, came in. So there's going to be a lot of dockage in canola and a lot of dockage in the wheat.
What's your fall plan? Do you do a lot of fall weed control?
I have in the past. This year, because we kind of went to a simpler rotation, I did do, and because of the second growth and the staginess of wheat, we sprayed our wheat. Typically, I do quite a bit of post-harvest. In our area, we've had a lot of longer Octobers. I found that even on your peas and on your earlier desiccated crops, on your weed management, if you get any sort of later rains, we seem to get those winter annuals getting ahead in the fall, and in the spring they're harder to kill. So I've really done quite a bit of that first week of October spraying, and it's just amazing what it does on your winter annuals.
How's the crop marketing going? Did you make any decisions there? I laugh because it's all over the map.
Yeah, it's interesting, Shaun. If you asked me 5 years ago, based on today's prices, how the marketing's going, it'd be fantastic. I think our prices are still in a desirable area for sure. Having said that, I didn't have the highs. I picked some early stuff. I was bit a couple of years ago when we didn't have much of a crop, and everybody, had tons of contracts. And I had a pea contract that I had to buy out of, and those really hurt. And, you're stressed over, if you have enough crops. So I've been a little more cautious on selling, especially when the markets are as high as they are. There's not really a lot of risk to wait. And so it's been good. Elevators have been, we haven't had a real quick start up here. So elevators have been wide open for space for peas and for wheat so far. There hasn't been any canola come off yet. So, it's been good. Prices of, I think inputs have made it a little bit more manageable. It's still the machinery, the iron costs that are really tough to figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to manage that to upgrade.
Yeah, and I was talking about it yesterday, speaking of input costs, a story, I think it was a Bloomberg story or Wall Street Journal, about diesel prices and how, they've been really floating up since springtime, which is something to keep your eye out for sure on, because that's, it's hard to avoid that, that you got to use those liters, right? Because you got operations to do.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I thought about that the last time we had a real diesel hike and low, about upgrading, fuel capacity. And it's a real conundrum. You go and you get a whole bunch of fuel capacity, you pay for the fuel, and it sits there for 6 or 8 months, or, especially if you're a moderate sized farm, what do you lose in quality, in interest when interest rates are where they're at, and you've got to borrow money, whether it's farm credit or an operating loan. There's those discussions, but when you have such fluctuations in diesel, there's definitely a reason to have, even a size to have a Super B or straight trailer full of diesel makes a lot of sense with some companies.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, Kent, all the best to you during harvest. I know this is a super, super busy time of the year, so I really appreciate you being here with us today. Thanks so much, and all the best to you, okay?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sean.
And we finish up this week's Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, by talking to Derwyn Hammond. He's area agronomist for Western Manitoba. Derwyn, how's it going?
It's going great, Sean. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, great to chat with you as well. So, hey, what are you up to this week? What does area agronomist for Pioneer Seeds Canada do in a week like this?
Well, actually, out touring with our research group, checking out some of the plots throughout the territory, trying to get those last notes prior to the combine starting to roll. In our area, certainly a lot of the cereal grains are off or winding up, and guys are starting to get into canola, just kind of getting started in my area around Brandon in the southwest part of Manitoba.
Are we going to be happy with some of the yields, or like what do you see in that way?
Yeah, given what's been pretty limited moisture in a lot of areas, I would say, the wheat yields have been, in many cases, a bit of a pleasant surprise. Lots of variability, obviously some lows in the 30s, but, some yields in that 70 range as well, throughout the territory, talking to different customers. So, when we talked earlier in the season, talked about the thunder shower type rain that we'd had throughout the early part of the season, and that variability has just kind of continued. We've had some areas get some late season rains that have really helped out, and we've had some fields that have missed those and really struggled. On the canola front, just kind of getting into the harvest, hearing some 50 bushel yields in some areas, but I've also seen some fields that have really suffered a lot of pod abortion from more sustained drought stress, those lighter textured soils that don't hold the moisture as well. So going to see lots of variability, not just from field to field, but within fields in different areas.
Yeah, we were talking earlier to your colleague, Greg Stopps, and we were talking about, diversifying your risk when it comes to maturities on corn. I know you've been out looking at some of the maturities of canola that were planted and comparing that to the season that you've had in Western Manitoba. Any insights there?
Yeah, certainly. I think with all the crops, seeing it in a little bit in the canola, obviously your longer season crops, the corn and beans, you see it a little bit more. Trying to put things in the context of the season that you've had on those fields. where you're growing those later maturing, longer season products. In some areas, again, that missed those later season rains, that drought stress has just gotten more and more severe as the season has gone on. Your later maturing products that flowered later and got into grain fill later are going to struggle more in those kind of scenarios. Where you had some decent rains in that August time frame, early August, then those longer season products may have had the opportunity to take advantage of those, where some of those earlier maturities have already kind of set their yield potential, and you're really only maybe benefiting your test weight a little bit. So I think the key thing for growers as they're looking at that is just putting it in the context of the season that we've had. I know here we're well ahead of last year and of normal in terms of crop advancement in all crops. Certainly in corn, we're hitting that half milk line for silage timing already, and that's probably for my area at least a week, maybe 2 weeks ahead of typical.
Oh wow!
And so if you've grown some longer season products to try them out because they had good yield results in other areas, just need to kind of put things in context. They'll have probably made full maturity this year, but does that really represent what you can expect year in, year out on your farm in terms of the types of season that you're going to have?
Good point. Because people can do whatever they want, but just, here's how I would look at it is you can fall into that trap of like, well, look, we got away with it this year. When I say it worked out. Next year, let's plant the whole farm to that longer season maturity. Because you know what? Think about the money that we left on the table by planting some of those shorter maturity varieties.
Yeah.
Danger.
Yeah, can be. Yeah, you have to be careful. And I mean, the other strategy around that can be to plant that basket of a few different maturities to help ensure that whatever type of season we have next year, we have a decent amount of our crop that it lines up well with and performs well. One thing I do see a lot of growers do that I try to caution them about, if that's your strategy, we'll buy early genetics and later genetics, and we'll plant the later, longer season products first, and we'll plant the early genetics last because less risk. But what you've really done then is shrunk that range of maturity across your farm. You've shrunk it down by doing that. So in reality, if that's your strategy, you might want to plant your early genetics first and your later genetics later, and that will actually widen out that maturity window a bit. So, if that's why you're doing that and planting that range of maturities, it's something to think about.
Hey, Derwyn, about 30 seconds left. Disease pressure. What are you seeing out there with disease in some of these fields?
Certainly seeing a bit less sclerotinia or white mold in the canola primarily, and we occasionally see it in soybeans, not very often in my area, but not seeing much. It's called white mold for a reason. Molds love moisture. But from a blackleg and verticillium standpoint, seeing a little bit out in field. So I guess, again, if you're seeing areas that are underperforming in the field, just don't assume that it's just drought. It's still an opportunity to do some investigation and make sure that it's not something else where, a product with a better rating or a trait that helps combat that challenge might help you.
Yeah, great stuff. Hey, Derwyn, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Always a pleasure.
That is Derwyn Hammond. He's the area agronomist for Western Manitoba with Pioneer Seeds Canada. Oh, time flew today. We got 6 interviews in. Crazy stuff. If you have any feedback, send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio, and we will chat again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.